Is Gnani aiming to build something like the DeepSeek of India?
See, firstly, nobody knows what Deepfake did, right?
So one of your bots is going to a defaulter. Is the company making an attempt to make it sound as natural, as conversational as possible, or straight away you all make this very clear that this is a bot, you're not talking to an actual person?
The call would start with saying that this is Aditi calling from this dead company. Basically, the Aditi reminded people our bot on collection, and a lot of people started visiting the local collection centers and asking for Aditi. Right?
It's a country where language changes and the tonality changes and everything. So when you all were training your in-house models, what kind of an approach did you all follow for that?
We made sure that we collect data for every 15 kilometers. We started with Kannada because we are from Karnataka, right? And then we moved to Hindi, and then we moved with 10 to 15 languages. And today I'm proud to say that we have the largest data set by far in the country for Indian languages.
We've all had those conversations with an IVR where we've just gotten fed up.
For customer service, please press 1. For sales, press 2.
Would you say that AI will finally kill the IVR once and for all?
I think IVRs are the biggest impediment of good customer experience, right? And they're going to die soon. That's a good news.
Current position of India, conversation when it comes to the AI and the tech world right now, does India still want to be a consumer or want to build on its own? What do you think? Ganesh, a very warm welcome, a very good morning. We are glad to have you here at the Hot Seat by AI Media House. It's been due actually. We have had quite a few dates lined up, but finally Ganesh is here. Welcome, how are you doing?
All great. Sorry, I missed out a couple of times. Customers come first. So, your team wants to do a lot more media than you want to often. But, if a customer comes calling, you go there. Right?
Of course, you got it. But we are glad that you're here finally. Ganesh, there's so much that we want to talk about. But right at the start, I want to take a little bit of a trip down memory lane to the career that you have had. Very fascinating. You've had a long and very successful career in big tech. There's been IBM, Texas Instruments, Sapient before you founded Gnani AI. So, what was maybe say the one turning point that made you think that okay, now is the time that I want to take a leap into entrepreneurship?
So I think it's always a temptation in our lives to always look for a eureka moment, right? I Unfortunately there wasn't any, right? I think it's been gradually building up, right? I think started from the time I was working with customers. I felt, what if I was in charge, I could do things a little differently, right? Then MBA happened, and had a good time at ISB, where I met some amazing entrepreneurs who are my co-students. Uh, then when I was in TI, I think that was the real point, right? And a couple of things really happened for us, right? The first and foremost thing was we were talking to a customer in I think this is somewhere in the world, and I and this other friend of mine, Anant, right? We talking to this customer, and the customer said things like, what, price of one of your products has gone up, right? And then we said, okay, we'll check back and come back to you. And then we went back and we looked at the price, maybe 4 years back it's gone up. Then we thought, let's look back how long this product has been around. We found that that particular product was around for 25 to 30 years and generating revenue multiple times over, right? That's when we said, hey, we got to be in the IP business, right? And then Anant and I talked a lot. And the turning point for us fundamentally was one fine day when, in Anand's team, we found a lot of his team, suddenly got poached by Alexa, right? Then we said, hey, maybe there's something really fascinating in what we are doing, that people, in all this new tech are coming and poaching our folks and our friends, right? So then Anant and I talked through, and then we said, look, what we need to do is, and what the country really needs is a deep tech company out of India, right? I have to say that it was totally the wrong way to start a company, right? We did it absolutely wrong, if I can put it that way. So all that we had was, we said we want to be the best. We want to be deep tech. Just the two of us in office when we started. We had a small poster in our office that said better than Google, because Google was the poster boy of tech innovation at that point, right? And we said, look, we want to build some fascinating deep tech. Uh, like I told you this, if I were to advise anyone, I would say don't start a company that way, right? You have to find a problem statement and you need to solve it, but that's not how we did.
I was just going to ask, you said twice we did it the wrong way. What would have been the right way?
The right way, I guess, what we've been taught and what we advise people today is find the use case, right? Do some experiments in your solution and then ramp it up, right? And that's what we did later. But so we just built some amazing deep tech, and we talked to folks but we did talk to a lot of people. We talked to more than, I think, 350 people when we started. And we found, and that time, Alexa was talking about grocery shopping using voice, if you remember. This was the first AI wave, if I can put it that way. So we said, look, what's missing is speech AI for Indian languages, right? And what's out there is really bad. So let's go and build it out. So we built, we first went out and built India's first speech engines for many languages. The first speech engines for Kannada, I would say Telugu, Hindi, variants of Hindi were all built by us, right? So I would say, like I said, the wrong way to run a company. We ran this for 2.5 years with no salary and just a dream that we are building something great, right? That's when one of my earlier customers in TI, Samsung, they benchmarked us versus, just called us one day and I met this guy. He said, can I benchmark your stuff? I said, sure. And he said, you're actually 14% better than likes of Google and others that are out there.
He said 14% better.
14% better. And I said, all right, so what do you want to do with that? And he said, look, we want to invest in you folks, right? So at that point, Samsung was, looking to promote their own voice assistant called Bixby, right? And that's when they made a small investment in us and we got started, right? So this took about 2.5 years. So we've been in AI before AI became fashionable, if I can put it that way. So we've been through its, I would say, downs and ups rather than ups and downs, right? And it's today also fashionable to be in deep tech and say that you're a deep tech company. But I have to say that we made rounds of around just before the Samsung investment, which happened suddenly. Made the rounds of a few hundred VCs who said no, because they said deep tech is not for India. In India, you just call APIs and don't try to be the next Google or don't try to be the next, Amazon. Your job is to be the next service company. Don't forget that.
One more, as if India already didn't have enough service companies.
Yeah.
Which year are we talking about? Which time period before the Samsung?
So this was between 2017 and 19, right? 2019 is when we got the Samsung investment. So we worked with Samsung for a while, and then post that we figured out that it's better to be focused on the customer experience world, right?
Okay, Ganesh. For those who don't know, if one has to ask you in simple words, tell us what is Gnani AI and what does it do?
So today, Gnani AI builds, it's an agentic AI platform for specific verticals. Today, we focus on BFSI, right? So some of the theses that we believe in from the AI sense is, the first thesis is verticalized AI. We believe that you have to be verticalized and solve problems for a specific industry, right? The second thing where we differ from a lot of folks is, we believe in what we call as small language models, which we'll talk about. And again, that goes along with our theory of being verticalized, right? Third most important piece is we'll talk about, it's fundamentally all about ROI, right? Recently, I came across a fascinating, I would say, podcast by Satya Nadella, right? Where he talks a little more broadly. He says that rather than worrying too much about whether AI is becoming AGI, right? You rather worry about whether it's adding 10% to the GDP of nations, right? the way I related to that was, it's all about ROI rather than, how great your AI is. All that's very important, right? And extraordinarily important, right? But what will make this whole technology work and gather pace in the longer run is as we add value to customers, right? And I think these three are key components of our thesis. But if I were to answer your question in like one line, right? We are an agentic AI platform today for BFSI, but in the future could be for other verticals.
So can you tell us about the voice first SLMs and their potential to revolutionize Indian enterprises and Indian industry, especially BFSI?
So let me talk about some of the things that we've done in the past, right? And, I have to tell you, start with our first customer. I wouldn't like to name them, but this is a customer out of Chennai, and all credit to the gentleman from the customer side who had the guts to try this out, right? So I was, talking to him late in the evening around 6-7 o'clock, and I was trying to sell my tech to him. So then finally it struck me, hey, it's high time I asked him about his problems, right? So, and then I started asking him, what are your biggest problems? And he said, for a lot of the lending companies, the problems are in debt collection, right? Can you do something there? I asked him what. He said, look, we employ, for example, something like Bucket X, right? That is 0 to 30-day delinquency. We employ a lot of contact center agents, but it's really not working out. It's too expensive. We're not getting the returns we want to. So I told him right out there is, I have this product where I'll do a voice AI agent for, debt collection. I think at that time we called it a voice bot. Today we call it a voice AI agent. And we developed that for him in a couple of days. And that was India's first voice AI agent for debt, right? And just to give you an idea how that business has ramped up, right? We now service more than, I think, 80 to 90 customers just in that space, right? And give you an idea of the debt we handle, I think our loan book is close to 60,000 crore, right? And we collect over 20,000 crore today, right? So, and this is all across. We work with the top banks in India. We work with the top gold loan companies. We work with the top NBFCs. We work with the top buy now, pay later companies. We work with the new fintech companies. So we are, working with almost everybody and helping them with their debt journeys. So this is one use case, right? The other one is something in insurance, right? Again, at the same time that we started with the first debt company, we talked to one of the India's top insurance companies. Again, they had the guts to say, look, we have similar problems around insurance renewals. Can you guys help us with this, right? And both of them are customers even after 5 years with us, right? Now, the technologies we work with them would have changed. We now work with them across many, many use cases, but they remain our customers today, right? Where what we are really doing is we are solving problems in the real world, right? For example, we collect more than human agents and at a lower price, for example, right? In certain cases, we augment what human agents do, right? We have a product called Real-Time Agent Assist as well, where it's not a replacement of agents, but works along with the agents and makes them better at what they do. But answer to your question and back to my point on ROI, right? When we talk to a customer, right, I actually never talk AI, right? I talk about his business, right?
His problems?
His problems, his business, and how we're going to solve them. So the first thing I ask a customer is, hey, what's your loan base, right? And he say, and ask him how much is consumer durable, how much is personal loan, and how much is two-wheeler, how much is four-wheeler. And I can tell him exactly how much percentage conversion I'm going to give him, right, on collection, and at what rate. And finally, at the end of the conversation, by the way, we use AI for this, right? Which is what I have learned the hard way. The conversations need to go if you are going to add value to customers. It's all about their problems. You may be doing the best technology in the world, which my team, obviously is extremely proud of. We've beaten, a lot of global giants in many of the technologies we do. But the fact remains is how much value we add for our customers.
I want to ask you a very layperson question.
Sure.
So one of your bots is going to a defaulter or somebody who needs to pay up either today or tomorrow. And when that call starts, is, is the company making an attempt to make it sound as natural as conversation as possible so that they don't even have to think about whether they're talking to a bot or an actual person, or straight away you all make this very clear that this is a bot, you're not talking to an actual person?
So I think the decision depends on the customer.
The company.
I mean, I can give you some examples. Like,
Please.
there are some customers who say, we call it, our AI bot, right? And the call would start with saying that this is, say, Suresh, your AI bot, talking to you. In some cases, it would be like, this is Aditi calling from that company, without revealing that whether you're AI or whether you're not AI,
Actual
right?
person.
The interesting thing that we found in many cases, like for example, we use a person called Aditi in some cases, right? We found a lot of people who had to pay their debt. So basically, the Aditi reminded people or bot on collection. And a lot of people started visiting the local collection centers and asking for Aditi, right? And they used to say, I want to speak only to Aditi, ma'am.
Only to Aditi.
And I want to pay
To her.
Because she was nice to me,
How sweet.
right? So I think the choice, goes to the companies. But what we have found is that, it is important to make it human-like, irrespective of whether you're going to say you're a bot or you're not a bot. And that's the constant challenge that, you have to, surpass. Make sure that, because when humans talk to humans, it's more of a conversation, right? So, and the technologies, the way they are getting better is making that whole experience fantastic, right? And that's what our team, our tech team, focuses a lot on, how to humanize conversations. Now, this is not just the voice, right? It's also on the words you use, right? And how you come across, and so on and so forth. In fact, some interesting ideas that we received, during this process was, you actually should not make it a person should not speak with great dictum and should not speak the perfect Hindi or the perfect English, because generally the contact centers don't.
Right.
Secondly, don't speak, without any disturbance and have the most smoothest conversation possible, because that's not what contact centers have been in the past. Right. So if you ever got a call, and all of us have got calls from contact centers, so you would see that, there's always disturbance. You're always hearing what the next guy is talking. Right. So the process here is to mimic, what people think it's a natural conversation.
Wow.
Right. Rather than trying to, give a conversation that sounds artificial.
So what kind of audio elements do you add for that?
So there are a bunch of those things. Could be noise. We actually add noise often, right, to the conversation. It's a bunch of various things. But what we really do is enormous amount of testing, right? But what's important in this whole game is, what you got to understand is, in India, languages change. There's something called continuity of languages, right? So in India, you'll see that say Hindi spoken every 15 kilometers in the country is extremely, extremely different.
Very different, yeah.
Okay. So you need to understand that Hindi, and you need to converse in that Hindi, right?
And it's not just Hindi that is spoken differently. When you go to Chandigarh, the Punjabi that is spoken in Chandigarh is different from the Punjabi that is spoken in Ambala or Jalandhar. So it's a country where language changes and the tonality changes and everything. So when you all were training your in-house models, what kind of an approach did you all follow for that?
So that's a great question, right? So when we started off, I told you in the good old days when we had those massive dreams, and when we started off, we made sure that we collect data for every 15 kilometers or every 30 kilometers.
Wow.
So in our office, we had this massive chart of India that we had, and we used to put pins on it, right, to show which all districts of India we had the data from, right? And we could only put a pin if we had the right sampling amount of data for that district, right? And we started with Hindi. Actually, started with Kannada because we are from Karnataka, right? And then we moved to Hindi, and then we moved. Soon enough, we had about say 10 to 15 languages. And today, I'm proud to say that we have probably the largest data set by far in the country for Indian languages, right? Probably the largest data set ever, right, for any language in the world. Because we tend to be, I don't know about China, but we tend to be, highly populous country, right? So talk about a few 100,000 hours of audio, right, for every language that we went out and collected in various environments. That's also important, right? So, for example, the noise that you get when you're in an auto rickshaw, right, when you're speaking something, it's very different when you're in a train, when you're in a bus or in a studio like this, right? So we went and collected audio in various environments, and that helped us build some of our first models, right? Which, like I told you, which we were surprised to know that we were better than some of those global giants, right?
You all helped a leading bank recover over $1 billion in overdue. And banking is something that you all work so heavily in. How do you ensure something like data security when it comes to an industry where privacy is as important as banking or insurance?
Yeah, I think that's important. And the good news is that Indian banks or financial institutions are also very careful with the data, right? And typically we try not to have any data with us, right? We don't train with our customers' data. Our training is entirely different, right? We don't. We try our best not to have customers' data on our servers, right? We typically work by putting the data on the customer servers. If the customer says that no, you have to host it because we need to do some QA or stuff, we make sure that we give him typically a purging certificate with proof that we destroyed your data. So I think that those things are important, and we typically stay committed to ensuring the privacy of data. And the good news is that there are audits, regular audits done by financial institutions, at least the large banks, and that really helps in enhancing our systems. Obviously, we have all the certifications in place, whether it's an ISO or SOC 2 and a bunch of other stuff. But more importantly, it's the culture, right? You want to make sure that you don't keep any customer data, because that's not good, and we don't train with that. We already have more data than we need.
You know, you've in a bit answered this question already, but I still want to ask you because it's such an important part of what you all do. Your models are multilingual, they support more than 12 Indian languages. What has been the hardest part about making AI work in a country which is as linguistically diverse as India?
So I think when we started out, we had models for multiple languages, right? I think a key point for us is when we came out with a multilingual model, because what we found is people in every city of the country, right, speak differently, but they also speak with a mix of languages, right? I can give you my own example,
Please do.
right? I am Tamil, but born in Mumbai. So when I speak at home with my wife, the conversation could start sometimes in Tamil, could move to Hindi, could move to English, and now that we are in Bangalore, sometimes move to Kannada, right? So
Sometimes, often a mix of all those alphabets and languages in one sentence only.
one more likely, yes. Most often, and typically, that Mumbaikars have that tendency as well. But even particular to us, we speak many languages, right? And so one of the first things that we did, we do have a patent, for example, for multilingual conversations, right? And how do you switch the language? When do you switch the language in a conversation?
Exactly.
Is extremely important. There are also other examples, right? I mean, so we were doing this, and a lot of stuff we discovered along the way, right? Even in English, I mean, I'm not even going to talk about these languages. There are certain phrases that are only used in certain cities, right?
True.
I'll give you an example. We were doing this, working with an insurance customer in Chennai, okay? And, we found few of these bots failing, and then we went and went and checked, what was so we asked a question like, are you interested in renewing your insurance policy? And we found a lot of people answering, saying, and say, are you sure you want to go ahead, kind of stuff. And a lot of folks would answer by saying righto, right? Apparently that's the way a lot of folks in Chennai say, go ahead, kind of stuff, right? So and so that's what I'm saying. So it's not only the language or the fact that you speak multilingual conversations, but also the specific phrases and the slangs that are used, right? If you're in Mumbai, you'll probably, in Hindi, people will often say, Kali Bili call mat karo, right?
Kali pili call mat karo, all the
So
time.
that you would never have that in Delhi, or you never have that in Bangalore, right? So so the conversations could be very different based on that location. And so you need to build in that intelligence to handle that. So your point is valid. Obviously, multilingual conversations are extremely important. And we built our systems ground up to handle that.
So the slang example that you gave, Khali pili call mat kar, there's a Mumbai slang where you have to ask, yeah, is that even something to ask? I mean, yes,
Yeah.
definitely I want to go ahead. And the only answer that is given is sawal.
Yeah.
Sawal, yeah, of course, don't even ask me that question. Of course, I want to go
Yeah.
ahead. So how do you incorporate slangs like these while training AI models? Like, what was the approach for that?
So I told you, it all comes down to collecting the right data when you start, right? Because we have the biggest, I would say, annotated. The important part is you can get data from, you can just download data from YouTube. You'll say you'll have audio, right? But we have the largest annotated audio database in the world, right? Which we built our own proprietary tech, and that's how we get into all this stuff. We understand, because what we typically did was, when we built this data out, we would ask these kind of questions to people, right? And we would get those answers, and then we would have people. And we also worked a lot with linguists.
Right.
So that's the other aspect, right? Because that spoken languages are very different from written languages.
Absolutely.
Right? For example, we worked with a couple of very interesting organizations. Typically, a lot of these organizations, unfortunately, which specialize in Indian languages, would have members who are, average age would be like 67, right? But they carry a wealth of information in them, right? And you understand, how languages are formed and how people speak languages, right? How you start with root words, and how those root words often branch off into subroots, and so on and so forth, right? And that, getting to the etymology and the grammars of spoken language, right? I think is very, very important. And the time that we've been spending, and we have spent in the past with a lot of these folks, have really helped us, right? Like I said, unfortunate that a lot of these folks tend to be much older, so it's like it's a skill that's getting lost, or the understanding or the love for Indian languages often. But we do see that in many cities and many parts of India, local languages are alive and thriving, right? Not just in spoken colloquial language, but in terms of the number of novels that are written in the local language, and the research that's done in local languages. So it's fantastic, but you need to know where to look.
You've said this somewhere. You've said this on chats as well. You've said this on stage as well, that Gnani has several patents. Tell us about some of them.
I think I spoke about one of them, that was like multilingual conversations, right? How do you handle multilingual conversations? We have another interesting product that's called voice biometrics, or voice authentication. So we actually, and our theory about a lot of these products is to build them ourselves, have the IP to ourselves. We think that's extremely important, right? You just don't call APIs, because AI being what it is today, right? You need to have the ability to customize that with your own data, right? And if you're just going to call APIs, you lose that flexibility. So going back to voice biometrics, we have a patent on that. So this is like based on the features of your voice, and irrespective of the language you speak in, right? It will identify, if you enroll once, that it's indeed you're the right person who spoke before. You have to understand why this is so important in a country like India, or I mean, even in the US, where it could be Spanish and English, right? So because you could, you enroll yourself in English when you're in a certain mood, right? A different mood and talking to customer service, you will talk in your own language. So if the system has to authenticate you, you need to have the ability to, identify it's you irrespective of what you speak. And we've all heard of, stuff like voice phishing. All of us have been attacks of some of those things, right? And tools like we think our voice authentication, or what we call as Armor 365, our voice biometrics platform, are going to become extremely important in the future, right? As people start using bots or voice AI agents to communicate, and understand what you speak, it's important to authenticate you. I can give you an example of we work with a very large public sector company, right? Where people call in to, there are a lot of, basic questions that we call our banks for. One of the most common things is, give me 3 months account statement, right? Various people seem to be asking us, I don't know why.
I was a freelancer 6 months back. You would need to give account statements all the time.
Yeah. And so what we have is we have with this bank, firstly, a voice biometrics or a voice authentication layer built on our Armor 365. When you call in the first time, you enroll yourself, and then the second time you call in, it would authenticate you, make sure the right person, irrespective of the language you speak, right? You can't mimic it. You can't try to break that system, right? And it would identify it's you before giving you even that basic information.
And that is voice identification.
Voice identification. So this is a patent that we have on that as well. Yeah.
I want to give you 2 examples. One of them a very, very massy example that everybody would understand. One, a more tech-heavy example. I'll give the tech-heavy example first. There's this platform called HeyGen. Are you aware of it? Yeah. We generate videos from there, and we generate audios from there. And the audio and the video, they sound so real and lifelike that at first notice, you might not even be able to make it out that this is an AI-generated voice and an AI-generated video. Loads of content creators are making that nowadays. So much so, now I'll give the Masi example. Do you watch cinema? Do you know this actor, R. Madhavan?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knows him. Phenomenal actor. R. Madhavan recently reshared something on his story where Cristiano Ronaldo is talking about Virat Kohli, and he reshared that on his story. And a few hours later, Anushka Sharma had to DM him and tell him, this is not right.
Okay.
Cristiano has not said this about Virat Kohli. Please remove this. Okay. It is an AI generated video. And he couldn't make it out. You have to really listen to it like 15 times to be able to even see the lip sync not move correctly, or even hear that the AI might not be. And when it comes to voice, it's incredibly difficult to make out whether it's AI generated or whether it's real. So when we are moving towards a time like that, how do you ensure something like voice biometrics will be 100% authentic?
So the first thing that I said is it's not 100% authentic. Right? So you can't make sure that's 100% accurate.
But then what we're talking safety bit?
So we're talking about, let's say, 98, 99% accurate.
Okay.
What I also talked to you about is why we build our own tech. So what we make sure is that the false positives are 0%. You could have like 2% false negatives, which is fine. But that comes from only having your own tech, because we again will train with that data and to make sure that there are 0% false positives.
I'm sorry to cut you, but just to explain it in layperson terms, false positive would be yes, voice authorized, you are allowed in.
Yes.
And that you aim for 0%.
Yes.
Whereas false negative would be maybe it is my voice only, but still there is some kharoch here, some like today my voice is not the way it should sound. And then I am not being able to be let in. That is false negative, 1 or 2% possible. But false positive is letting in a person who's not the actual voice.
Yeah, and that's more important, right? So what I'm saying is the technology is getting better and better. I would say like 3 years back, I would have said 2% each way, right? Today, what I'm saying is it's now come to less than a percent.
Right.
But all this, you would have noticed this, all this is true for even, other forms of secondary authentication. It is a secondary authentication, but it's better than not having it, right? And when you're having stuff like voice AI agents, you basically have absolutely nothing. And human agents can spot often some kind of fraud, right? So we need to have some parallels or some alternate way to spot this. And this is what this technology helps.
Glad to hear that. Small little shift in the conversation, because a big part of the conversation when it comes to the AI and the tech world right now is current position of India. Does India still want to be a consumer or want to build on its own? A few weeks back, we had Ashwini Vaishnav say that we'll have India's own LLM, own model in the next 10 months. We have had some industry leaders who have said that's not required. Continue being a consumer, create services. Multiple other industry leaders who have said we must create on our own as well. Otherwise, we'll just be consuming from US and China. What do you think? It's the heavy investment is going on as far as India AI mission is concerned. Do you think the country should focus more on building own foundational AI models or double down on applied AI for enterprises and industries?
I think this goes back to what I told you happened a long time back. When we started, a lot of people said, don't build deep tech, right? You just do, Indians are only good at certain things. I think this is a great step by the government, right? What's been holding people back often is capital, right? And with capital and with the amazing AI startups in the country, we will be building a lot of LLMs. You're not going to talk about one LLMs or, it's going to be a bunch of LLMs out of India, right? We have also applied as part of this program. But what we are doing, and we'll talk more on that over the course of this conversation, is a speech-to-speech LLM, right? So we are also going to participate in this. In fact, my co-founder Anant was one of the initial folks who drafted the India AI mission for startups.
Wow.
Right? So we are committed, to be part of this journey, and I think this is a step in the right direction. And why stop? Why stop innovation? I mean, I'll give you an example as to what could have been holding companies in India back. Right? I think about 2000. I think it was 2018 or 19 when we had some good tech out of India. So we had this Chinese company visiting us. Right? This was before all the stuff that happened at the North border. Right? Then we stopped working with them. Right? So they came to us and what I talked to them, and they told me that they asked them how much funding they have. They said they have $600 million funding from central, state, and municipal governments of China. Right? Talk about it, 600 million. Right? And we have a lot of, and it's a personal choice. A lot of VCs would say, don't invest. We don't invest in deep tech. There would be today there are some VCs that actually invest in deep tech, but certain areas that it's good for the government to support, these startups, right, and to make sure that there's a conducive environment. I think this is a baby step in the right direction that the government has taken, and wouldn't be surprised if we have a lot of interesting, LLMs here. But I think it is not just LLMs for India, right? Indian companies will start building these LLMs for, say, African countries, say, building these SLMs for South American countries and various other things. A lot of those countries also don't have LLMs, but they even may not have the talent to build them, right? So I see, us having LLMs for, various countries around the world, including the developed markets, but also the big markets around the world are going to be the other developing markets.
In the last few weeks, DeepSeek made waves across the world, across the AI world, across the tech world. Is Gnani aiming to build something like the DeepSeek of India?
See, firstly, nobody knows what DeepSeek did, right? So it's like that blind guy looking at an elephant, right? Some people look at the cost of training that they claim. Some people look at the performance metrics. So when you say DeepSeek, I really don't know which part you're talking about. So, but I don't know what I should relate to, but yeah, I'll relate to the part that I am comfortable in.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So, and that's what we are interested in is highly accurate systems that bring I would say, the inferencing cost down, right? And that's what we do with a lot of our small language models. which we do for to solve problems in various sectors and verticals, starting with the BFSI sector. We want to bring the cost of inferencing totally down, right? So that again you can reach out to more people and it becomes more cost effective for the end customers. Now, broadly, DeepSeek, like I said, the other elements of DeepSeek that people talk about, hey, how did they train with just $5 million of data, of money? Was that? But nobody has the answers to the questions again. Was that the final training that they did, or did did they do? They were so amazing that they just did one training and everything worked. We really don't know the details here. So, but fundamentally, though, I think two or three things you understand from the DeepSeek experience, if I can say so, uh, that AI models can be built with lesser costs, right? You can lower the cost of inferencing, and you can build accurate systems. There are three things, and we obviously, those are three tenets which obviously we observe, right? And we build, right? Today, our focus is a lot on, something that we call speech-to-speech models, right? So I have to tell you that today the way, and we are trying to do something that very few companies in the world have ever done, right? And just in layman terms, right, just to break it down, today we do voice AI agents, right? But the way voice AI agents have been, and we have started changing, but the way traditionally voice AI agents are done is you talk to a machine, but what it does, it converts your speech to text, right? And then it processes the text using some Gen AI or something, finds the meaning of it, and then you respond back in your what's called text to speech.
And they do all of that in real time.
All that in real time, say less than a second, right?
Yeah.
So that you. But what's missing here, right? What's missing here is when I speak to you, right? And if I tell you, for example, something like, kya baat hai? Or if I tell you, kya baat hai? It means two different things.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now
The
that
tonality.
piece, the tonality firstly is missed out, right? And what you mean could be very different, irrespective of the words remaining the same. That's one piece. The second piece with real-time systems that is always a challenge for these systems is how can I get that latency down to like fewer milliseconds than you have today, right? And how can I make the inferencing cost be lower, right? Fundamentally, what I'm trying to say is that it's going to make you understand what people say, and not just look at the words, but it's also going to speed up the time it takes to process this information and respond.
You mentioned the SLMs multiple times. Gnani is building their SLMs optimized for industries and enterprises. What would you say are some of the biggest advantages of the usage of this over massive LLMs like, say, GPT 4.5, Llama 3.3? GPT 4.5 was launched today itself.
Yeah, I mean, this is a debate in the industry, right? Right? Do you even need SLMs? Right? People ask this question of, you just take a LLM, you can distill that if you want. And, why don't you just use that? And, why do you really need an SLM? Because they are getting better and better, right? So the fundamental things are two or three things that we speak about. First and foremost, in real-time conversations, typically, you find that LLMs tend to have more latency today, right? And if I'm speaking on a phone call to you and my response takes 2 seconds, you'll keep your phone down,
True.
right? So there's a constant battle, and SLMs which we have built on, say, 2.5 billion parameters, right? Compared to an LLMs, we can't even talk about the number of parameters today, right? So they respond faster. Secondly, for business or enterprise use cases, here we are not talking about building the new search engine of the future, right? Which should answer every question that you put in, right? What I'm here to solve is when a person calls a bank and asks for account balance or asks for any question that he has, it should be able to respond quickly, faster, and more accurately. And there you don't want it to hallucinate.
Exactly.
Right? And that's why we keep the model small. Your hallucination goes down. Hallucination for the layman is giving incorrect answers, right? You want to give as many accurate answers that you want to, right? And get it close to 100%, right? And secondly, give it faster. That's what I talked about, lowering the latency. So for both these things, we found SLMs as the perfect fit. Uh, we started actually with a very small language model, say close to 1 billion parameters. But today I think our model is say 2 to 3 billion parameters, and we feel that today this works great. And obviously in the future, the goal is also that can this work on a device, right? Can this work? Doesn't need to work on a very large server that's located somewhere in the world. Can it work on your local device? Can it lower the inferencing cost? So on and so forth, right? So there are multiple things to benefits of SLMs. The cost aspect, right? The fact that it can be so portable. Sometimes you may not want to have it connected to the internet, right? The third thing is accurate, and the fourth thing is low latency. So for real-time systems, firstly, and for multiple other reasons, I think SLMs are a good fit. We are building out SLMs for specific industries today, and so far the journey has been fantastic. We tend to stay focused on this.
I was going to ask this myself anyway, but I'm glad you brought up the topic of hallucinations. Now, the industries that you all work with, the two that I can think of the top of my head, banking and insurance, very important for somebody to get their private data ensured that it is safe. When it comes to conversations like these, banking, insurance, how do you all ensure that hallucinations don't happen, or even if they do, they don't happen of a drastic level that people can suffer losses or major losses?
See, two or three things people don't talk about when they talk about AI is most important part of, especially when you work with SLMs and LLMs, is guardrails. The guardrails are extremely important, right? Because you want to make sure that there's certain types of questions or certain things the AI is controlled over. Just look at it in simple language. Is like if you're in a field, right, you typically have barriers put all across the field so that your pets don't go out of that field, right? So what's important here is you put enough guardrails in place. Often we've found that your guardrails for some of these systems can actually take 30 to 40% of your prompting, right?
Oh.
It's that important. The second thing is how good is your prompting, and I think this is the whole concept of a prompt engineer. This is going to become one of the best roles in any organization. So a guy doesn't even need to code, but if he is more like a person who understands customers, who understands the domain, is going to become very, very important.
You've spoken about agentic AI being the next leap forward. How would you say AI agents can transform the way businesses handle customer interactions?
Yeah, so I think it starts with customer interactions. I mean, we are already probably doing agentic AI for a sales agent. We are doing agentic AI for a customer service agent. But where we are also getting into is, can we be, for example, a co-pilot for underwriting, right? A co-pilot for, say, claims reconciliation. So this is the future, right? And especially when you have these multi-agents, right, working together, what's really going to happen is, in simple words, right, you're doing a certain monotonous task, right? These AI agents are going to be able to help you do the task better, and certain cases would help you automate those tasks.
Let's talk about the IVR and the experience for a second. We've all had those conversations with an IVR where we've just gotten fed up. Press one, press two. And this is not very recent that I'm talking about. My last, I think it was a ticket cancellation or something where I had to stay on the call for close to 8-10 minutes. And it's annoying after a point of time. Would you say that AI will finally kill the IVR once and for all, and that will completely get replaced with true conversational interfaces?
Of course, I think IVRs are the biggest impediment of good customer experience, right? and they're going to die soon. That's a good news. I wouldn't like anybody to die, but I want IVRs to die.
Gnani has made such a huge impact in the BFSI sector, particularly in debt collections. What are some of the unique insights that you have found from these AI powered voice interactions that have revealed, behavior about the borrowers, the borrower behavior?
So I think a lot of very interesting insights that we have got in the past. We spoke about several of them. For example, it's not that people often don't want to pay. It's about having the making it easy for them very often, right? It's also about making them know what's really involved in the process, the repercussions of not paying, and also sometimes it's as easy for them to walk over to the nearest shop to make the payment, right? So just to make it easy for people to pay is extremely important. Some of the insights that we spoke about, for example, earlier was sometimes if you just advance the billing date or the EMI date, that would solve your purpose. Sometimes even preponing that solves your purpose. So we've seen EMI dates, often, sometimes come on the 5th of the month. I've had some borrowers asking, can you make it the 2nd of the month? Right. So there are various interesting insights that you get in these, interactions.
Major AI players in India, like say Sarvam AI, Kisan AI, and others, they're leveraging synthetic data to solve Indic languages challenges using Llama and other models. What are your thoughts on this?
So I think the first and foremost thing is the quality of original data that you have, right? And that's what we have. I spoke earlier about having the largest annotated database for Indian languages, and that too in the various environments of the country. So your synthetic data is obviously only second best to that, right? Synthetic essentially means that you're faking the data, right? Having said that, it has its advantages that you can do this at scale. So we use largely a mix of our own data that we have collected in various environments. Open source data as well is important. And thirdly, some element of synthetic data. But we feel that the original data is the best. It's only when you don't have that data that you tend to rely a lot more on the synthetic data. But synthetic data has its advantages, right? So, for example, if you're solving problems for a specific, I would say, use case, and the kinds of conversations that are going to happen, you could use your original data and tweak it with synthetic data, so that you have enough data for that use case to solve that. So each has its advantages, but nothing to beat the original data if you have that. Like you can do your best to I would say simulate an conversation in an auto rickshaw, but nothing beats having the original conversation
Inside an auto rickshaw.
Yes.
Layperson question once again. And before that, I'll give a small little context. When OpenAI launched their voice feature last year, they went through an entire fiasco because without consent, without permission, or without a contract, they had used Scarlett Johansson's voice. And Scarlett Johansson very correctly sued them for that. I want to ask you all that what are the voices which have been used for these bots? Have they been generated through human voices, or have they completely been auto machine generated?
So there are three parts to this, right? Like I told you, the first part is recognizing what's spoken, which we use our algorithms, and we collected that data with consent.
Correct.
Right.
From speakers and
all across,
voiceover
like
artists.
Not necessarily, it could be a person on the street, and we have multiple ways to collect, but we always do collect it over consent.
Correct.
Right? The part that I think you're focusing on is not the training, but the voice of the person.
The voice of the bot.
Voice of the bot.
Right.
And that really, there are 2-3 ways to do that today, right? So the text-to-speech systems have really advanced, right? So the first way is you record a person's voice in a studio, right? Take that voice as a traditional way and build out a text-to-speech system from it, right? And those systems are getting better as we speak, right? More human-like. The second way is with permission. Like I'll give you an example. I only talk about practical situations. So we work with a lot of contact centers, right? And some of those banks tell us that, you know what, I like your voice, but my contact center has one person, right, named Mary, who has the best voice I've seen. So can you make your bot in that voice? So first thing we would
Lovely.
tell them is, you know what, we need consent
From Mary.
from Mary,
Yeah.
right? And secondly, we need consent from you that we are using Mary's voice to clone her
Correct.
voice.
Correct.
So you need to go through a bunch of these consent mechanisms. Then we can clone Mary's voice and have her voice to represent your brand. So what's going to happen in the future, right? Today, because it's so complex, all these rights are currently being sorted out. Okay. So what's going to really happen is there's going to be a spokesperson for, today there's a spokesperson for every brand, right? And soon enough, I think brands are going to start communicating in the voice of their spokesperson, right? I think you saw this earlier, I think a couple of years back when I think Alexa used Amitabh Bachchan's voice for certain things, right? But this is going to become very, very real. But there was a reason that people stopped doing that because I think the whole industry started worrying about, rights and how to charge for those rights.
Correct.
Like if Salman Khan wants to lend his voice to brands, he knows how much it's going to be for an advertisement. But if he lends his voice for an AI bot or an AI advertisement which can be reused maybe, right? Then he's really worried, right?
We are almost towards the end of the podcast. I want to ask you a few questions which are a little different as far as the narrative is concerned. Right before we started rolling, I was hearing about the early years of Ganesh's career, which were in the US. And if you can tell me this one example that we spoke about as to some of the responses that you would hear from US colleagues back then, and just give me an example because you work so much there now as well. You're doing US India so much. How does the West look at India now compared to how the West used to look at India in the late 90s, early 2000s?
I think the fantastic work done by companies like TCS, Wipro, and the like, right? Have changed the perspective on Indian techies, right? Even when I went to the US in the 90s, and I think the TCS was already operational for a couple of decades then, I guess, right? When I first went to the US, the part that people are surprised was, how do you speak English, right? The first question was, how do you speak English? And the second part was, riding all those elephants, how do you write code, right? So I think this is some of those things that you used to hear. But I think what people who are amazed more than anything else with the quality of the tech talent, right? And, and I think today, I think we are known for great tech talent. And the reason why we started this company is that we want India to be known as a great product nation and as a great deep tech nation. I hope we are successful in our endeavor.
Ganesh, we are legit towards the end of the podcast. We just have a rapid fire left.
Sure.
A book that influenced your leadership style.
I think Fountainhead.
That's something that you suggest budding entrepreneurs to read as well?
I think I'd suggest anybody who's in his between 18 to 20 years to read. Read it at least 20 times is what I would recommend. And read it through your life.
One technology trend you're most excited about in 2025-26?
I think it has to be, because I'm in this industry, agentic AI, right? We are just excited about it. Absolutely excited about it.
One tech buzzword that you feel is overhyped?
Today, unfortunately, it's deep tech.
Last question. One advice to a young budding entrepreneur in the country who wants to do something in the AI space, in the tech space, build for India, take it to the world.
Yeah, I think be fearless. That's the only advice I'll give you. Because I think people have the talent. Don't let fear hold you back. And you don't even need to build for India. You can start by building for the world. So, and I'm sure there are going to be plenty of those folks.
There definitely will be. Ganesh, thank you so much.
Sure.
How was the chat for you?
Great. I really enjoyed the experience. Very different to what I've done before. So I like the way you compared, and I like the whole format. I think it was interesting.
Thank you so much. It was very interesting. I am very, very sure about it. Tell us in the comments, just like our previous podcasts. Tell us in the comments, how did you find this one? Make the answers long. We want to read all of them. And of course, for more such content just like this, do not forget to subscribe to Hot Seat by AIM Media House. This is me, your friend Korak Roy, with Ganesh here from Gnani. We will see you in the next one.